Ghostly tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey, everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese. Ghostly Tales from Liao Zhai. Today, I'm going to tell you a story called Wang. In ancient legends, it was believed that when people died, they would turn into ghosts and be led to another world by the soul collector. However, during this process, mistakes could occur, and Wang, the king of the underworld, might allow the souls to return to their own bodies. But if the body had already decayed, it would be very dangerous for the spirits, and in such cases, they would choose to attach themselves to other corpses, or else their souls would dissipate and disappear forever. Of course, there were very few individuals who had the opportunity to become deities. These opportunities, though seemingly coincidental, were predestined. And what we are going to tell you today is the story of one such ghost. In the county of Lijian, there was a man named Wang. One day, he suddenly fell seriously ill and quickly passed away. Wang Lan's spirit followed the soul collector to the underworld. Upon arriving in the realm of the dead, he faced a re-examination by the king of the underworld, Wang. Wang realized that it was a mistake by the little demon who had taken his soul, and then ordered the soul collector to return Wang Lan's soul to the mortal world for resurrection. However, the soul collector discovered that Wang Lan's body had already decayed. Fearful of incurring Wang's wrath, the soul collector smiled at Wang Lan and said, "Being a ghost is quite miserable, but if you can transform into a deity, you will find eternal happiness. If becoming a deity is so blissful, why bother returning to the mortal realm?" Wang Lan found some truth in those words, and the soul collector continued, "I know of a fox spirit that has successfully cultivated a golden elixir. If we can steal that elixir and have you consume it, your soul will not dissipate, and you can exist eternally. At that time, you can go wherever your soul desires. Are you willing?" Wang Lan heeded the advice of the little demon, and together they entered the grand estate of a noble family. They both arrived at the mansion and found that the buildings inside were tall, extensive, and eerily quiet without a soul in sight. In the courtyard, they saw a fox sitting beneath the moonlight, its head tilted upward toward the sky. With a single breath, the fox exhaled a small pellet from its mouth, and it flew up into the moon. Then, with another breath, the pellet fell back down. The fox caught it with its mouth and repeated this process continuously. The little demon quietly hid beside the fox, waiting for it to exhale the pellet and swiftly grabbing it to hand over to Wang Lan for consumption. The fox was taken aback when it noticed this, and with anger in its eyes, it lunged toward them. However, upon realizing that Wang Lan and the soul collector were two individuals, it feared that it couldn't win and reluctantly departed in frustration. Therefore, Wang Lan bid farewell to the soul collector and returned to his own home. When his wife and children saw him, they were initially frightened and tried to escape, but Wang Lan explained the whole story to them. Hearing his account, his family gradually gathered around him. From that day on, Wang Lan continued to live at home as usual. Wang Lan had a good friend named Zhang, who heard about his return and came to visit him. After exchanging pleasantries and greetings, Wang Lan said to Zhang, "Both of our families have always been very poor. Now that I have these magical abilities, we can use them to become rich. Would you be willing to join me in this venture?" Zhang readily agreed. Wang Lan continued, "I can heal illnesses without medicine and make accurate predictions without divination. But if I appear in front of others, people who knew I had passed away would surely be shocked and frightened. Let me attach myself to you, and you can carry me out. Is that acceptable to you?" Once again, Zhang readily agreed. So, the two of them packed their belongings and set off on the same day. They first arrived in Shangxi, where they heard about a wealthy merchant's daughter who had fallen seriously ill. She remained in a constant state of unconsciousness, her mind unclear. The merchant had tried various remedies and sought divine help, but nothing had worked, and his daughter showed no signs of improvement. Zhang visited the merchant's home and showcased his magical abilities. The merchant, who cherished his only daughter deeply, was willing to do anything to cure her. He made a vow that whoever could heal his daughter's illness would be rewarded with 1,000 taels of silver. Zhang requested permission to visit the patient. Zhang followed the wealthy merchant into the inner chamber, where he saw a young girl lying there in a deep coma. He gently lifted the girl's blanket and touched her body and joints, but she remained unconscious with no response. Wang Lan's voice echoed in Zhang's ears, whispering to him secretly, "The girl's soul is lost. If we can retrieve her soul, she will recover." Zhang pretended to ponder for a moment and then solemnly told the merchant, "Although your daughter's condition is perilous, there is still hope for her." The anxious merchant asked, "What medicine should I prepare for you?" Zhang replied that no medicine was needed. He continued, "Your daughter's soul has departed from her body and is somewhere else. I will send a spiritual guide to search for it now." About 2 hours later, Wang Lan returned suddenly. He informed Zhang that the girl's soul had been found. Zhang invited the wealthy merchant to join him as they entered the inner chamber. The merchant, seeing his daughter once again, gently called her name and caressed her head. After a while, the merchant's daughter seemed to stretch as if waking from a nap and suddenly opened her eyes. Overjoyed, the merchant continued to stroke her head and eagerly inquired about what had happened. His daughter replied, "I was playing in the garden earlier and saw a young man using a slingshot to shoot at birds. There were a few people with fine horses following him. I tried to hide, but he blocked my way. He handed me the slingshot and said he wanted to teach me how to play. I felt shy and was about to scold him, but he carried me onto his horse. I ended up riding with him, and he laughed, saying, 'I like playing with you, don't be shy.' We rode for quite some distance into the mountains. I cried and scolded him on the horse, which made him angry, and he pushed me off by the roadside. I wanted to go home but couldn't find my way. Just then, someone came. He grabbed my arm and ran with me, and we ran so fast, it felt like we were galloping on horseback. Before long, I looked around and realized we had arrived home. Then, it was like I woke up from a dream. The wealthy merchant was immediately impressed with Zhang's extraordinary abilities and promptly fulfilled his promise by giving him 1,000 taels of silver. On that night, Wang Lan and Zhang made a decision to keep 200 taels of silver as their travel funds, while the rest would be transferred to Wang Lan's home using his magical powers. Wang Lan instantly flew to his doorstep, knocked on the door, and handed the money to his son. He instructed his son to deliver 300 taels to the Zhang family. After completing this task, Wang Lan returned and took up residence in Zhang's body once more. The next day, Zhang bid farewell to the wealthy merchant. However, the merchant didn't see the silver he had gifted to Zhang and found it even more perplexing. As a result, he presented Zhang with generous gifts and escorted him out the door. A few days later, Zhang encountered a fellow villager named Zhai in the outskirts. Zhai was a man who indulged in drinking and gambling, neglected his work, and had fallen into extreme poverty, resembling a beggar. When he heard that Zhang had learned extraordinary magical techniques and amassed countless riches through them, he came specifically to find Zhang. Wang Lan advised Zhang to give Zhai a small amount of silver and send him away. However, Zhai didn't change his old habits. In just 10 days, he squandered all the silver, and he intended to return to Zhang for more. Wang Lan, aware of Zhai's intentions, cautioned Zhang, saying, "Zhai is arrogant and lacks manners. You mustn't associate with him. For now, we can only give him some money to send him on his way. This way, even if he causes trouble elsewhere, the harm to us will be limited." The next day, as expected, Zhai returned and forcefully insisted on partnering with Zhang for some endeavor. Zhang said to him, "I knew you would come back. You drink and gamble every day, and even if I were to give you 1,000 taels of silver, it wouldn't fill your bottomless pit. But if you can truly mend your ways, I will give you 100 taels of silver." Zhai readily promised to change his bad habits, and Zhang handed over all the silver from his purse. However, after Zhai left, he not only failed to reform but also became even more reckless. With 100 taels of silver in his pocket, he indulged further in drinking, gambling, and even visited brothels, spending money extravagantly. The local constables suspected his wealth was ill-gotten and arrested him, subjecting him to cruel torture during interrogation. Under duress, Zhai confessed the source of the money, leading the county magistrate to dispatch constables to apprehend Zhang. However, after a few days, Zhai succumbed to his injuries and died on the way. His soul, though, remained determined to find Zhang and attached itself to him. Consequently, Zhai's soul joined with Wang Lan's soul in one place. One day, they gathered at the Yendun wasteland for a drinking session. Zhai's soul got heavily intoxicated and began to shout wildly. Wang Lan tried his best to restrain him, but Zhai wouldn't listen. Coincidentally, the imperial inspector's carriage passed by, and upon hearing the commotion, he dispatched constables to investigate. The constables apprehended Zhang, who was terrified and confessed to the whole story in detail. The imperial inspector, enraged, ordered Zhang to be whipped and reported the case to the gods. That night, the imperial inspector had a dream in which a deity clad in golden armor appeared to him. The deity said, "We have discovered that Wang Lan was wrongly killed and has become a celestial being. His medical practice was an act of benevolence, and you should not treat him as a demon. Today, I carry out the will of the Jade Emperor to appoint Wang Lan as the Clear Path Emissary, a messenger from the heavenly realm. Zhai's licentious and dissolute behavior has already been punished, and he has been exiled to the Iron Encirclement Mountain. Zhang, as a human, is innocent, and you should pardon him." The imperial inspector awoke from the dream, greatly astonished, but eventually released Zhang. Zhang prepared his belongings and returned to his hometown. He still had several hundred taels of silver, and he respectfully offered half of it to the Wang family. Since that day, the descendants of the Wang family also became prosperous. All right. That's all for today's ghostly tale. Wang Lan. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.